we're back now with Ironman training log number 16. I say Ironman training log, we are still in technically 70.3 prep, but you know, we're training for Ironmans in the long run. But we're looking at, the 16th training log now. We're actually covering off on 2 weeks this week rather than just the 1 week. Reason why it's 2 is because I essentially skipped last week's training log, and I was almost going to skip this one again because I haven't had the best 2 weeks of training. Just things have gotten in the way, health and work commitments, things like that, where I haven't been able to hit the sessions exactly as I wanted to, and I almost hesitated making this training log. But I think it is important actually to share the ups and downs of Ironman training. Obviously pretty much everyone that watches this is an age grouper. I doubt there's any pro. It'd be pretty cool if there are pros actually watching this training log, but I assume we're all age groupers here and everyone can relate to the inevitable setbacks you have in Ironman training. So I do want to keep it pretty open and accountable with that. But overall, we still managed to get out 2 weeks of training. We didn't have to take any days completely off, but there were some days where I was only able to get in, say, a 30 to 40 minute jog. And it's frustrating to me because we're 12 weeks out now from my first 70.3, and one thing I really sort of pride myself on, and one thing I at least really focus on, is consistent training. I don't try and go all out in any one session. I like to try and have really good, consistent week on week on week on week, month to month to month training, especially because I'm kind of new to this whole endurance sport and triathlon training. I'm trying to build up a good aerobic base and lay a good foundation. I think the key to that is really consistency. But nonetheless, I mean, if we were to have a look, let's actually run through what sort of happened over the last 2 weeks. So picking up where we left off from was about the 20th of June, which is 2 weeks ago today. We started that one out on the morning. We always do basically a swim Monday mornings. Now, this one was planned as a 3.7 kilometer swim, but I only did 2.2 Ks. I slept in a bit that morning, which is just purely a lack of discipline. Like, I didn't wake up on my first alarm, and then I didn't have time to get the full session in. So that one was really more like mental than anything else. It wasn't life getting in the way. I just wasn't committed enough to that session. Slept in, only did about 2.2 K of a 3.7 K swim, which isn't the end of the world. Nothing too much to stress over there. And then Monday afternoon, we had our typical easy spin where I just averaged 180 watts for an hour. So a bit below, I think that's like 65% of my FTP. So it's all pretty steady there for an hour. So Monday's not too bad really, but then Tuesday, we actually had a really good session. So bit of a highlight of the 2 weeks was the track session that we do on Tuesday, and I started doing in preparation for my first 70.3, where I'm trying to work on a bit of speed work now. So for this one, the main set was 5 by 1 mile, and I actually did those pretty well. It was 3:30 per kilometer, which is about 6-ish minutes per mile, a little under 6 minutes per mile for those 5 miles. We took 60 seconds rest in between. So I was pretty happy to hit that session, and then obviously you do a 20-minute warm-up and cool down on either side. So all in all, it's like a 16-kilometer run where I averaged 4:15 per kilometer. So that's something I was pretty happy with. And then the other session we had on Tuesday was like 45 minutes of weights. So Tuesday was a great day. Overall, not too bad. So going to Wednesday morning now, that we actually did a 5.3 kilometer swim when there was only 4 kilometers planned. And I suppose that's really just my ego trying to make up for the swim that I cut short on the Monday. I made sure to get up extra early that Wednesday. I also knew too that towards the end of the week I was going to have to travel for work, and it was going to be a hard, bit of a struggle to try and get any good training in towards the end of the week. So I threw a fair bit of extra volume in there on that Wednesday. So overall 5.3 kilometers, average 142 per 100, which is pretty standard for me. Main set for that was just 6 by 100, 3 by 200, and then repeat that 3 times. So the other session we had on Wednesday afternoon was 5 by 5 minutes at 300 watts, 5 minutes recovery between each. So it's the same session we did the week before. 300 watts is 110% of my FTP. So, it's kind of VO2 max-ish, certainly above threshold. That session went pretty well, but then the point where the training drops off for the week is Thursday. So Thursday, I travel up to Brisbane for work. Basically, I wake up at 5:30, I travel back to the hotel, and I don't get a chance to get any training in until like 7:30, 8 o'clock that night. I've never had a workout start later than 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night and actually go well. So there's no chance I was going to try and get in any good quality training. It was more just a shakeout run that I went for on the Thursday afternoon. So that ended up being 32 minutes, and we ran 5.6 kilometers. So 5:46 per kilometer average pace there. Super easy. I mean, I really was just running around Brisbane taking in some sights. It's not a city I've spent too much time in, so it was nice to be up there at least. And I mean, last time we went up to Brisbane, you remember there's a video I posted a while ago. It's called The Harsh Reality of Training for an Ironman. A bit of clickbait, I know, but that was when I traveled up to Brisbane last time. I tried to hit every session exactly as it was planned, and I ended up digging myself into a massive hole, and I could hardly train for a few days once I got back. And my ambition going up to Brisbane this time, almost a repeat trip, was to do it intelligently. Do it in a way where I wasn't going to negatively impact my training when I get home. And I mean, we'll have a look at that in a minute, but after Thursday, Friday morning, I just got in about a little over a kilometre of swimming in the morning before work. That was in the hotel pool though, which is 20 metres long, and it felt like it was set to like 35 degrees Celsius or like 412 degrees Fahrenheit for you Americans that are watching. So a tiny hot pool basically. It's the only time I've ever swam laps in a pool that had a bar connected to the end of it. You know, it's that kind of setup. There was no lifeguards, no one was there. I had to literally pull the pool vacuum out myself that morning. And the pool wasn't really set up for swimming laps because after I got out, noticing I'd been doing so many tumble turns, there was water just all over the hotel pool floor. So I made a bit of a mess there that morning, but still managed to, you know, keep a bit of feel for the water and keep a bit of, you know, blood flowing around. And then that's the only session I did on Friday. It was just a quick swim, like literally 21 minutes of swimming in the morning, off to work. I could have got in another session that night, but what was the point? Like I knew I was just going to dig myself a hole if I trained too much while traveling. Now, Saturday, I didn't fly out until that afternoon, so I was actually able to get in a good social run. I managed to do that with Kent and Eliza from the Rebound Clubs. Rebound Club's a great little running group up in Brisbane. For any of you guys that do watch the videos from Brisbane, make sure you go and check that out. I'll link to those guys in the description so you can check out the Rebound Club. But that was plenty of fun, just a nice 7K run, 40 minutes, 5 minutes 30 per kilometre. Only thing is I didn't pack any running shoes, so I ran that in just like my minimalist barefoot shoes, which obviously offer no support, and I didn't want to go too far or too fast in those because there's a point in minimalist shoes, I think, where the cons start to outweigh the pros. They are good to a degree for building, you know, your muscles in your feet, I suppose, because there's no support, but if you run too far, I knew I was going to be sore for days to come. So yeah, 7 kilometers, and that's the only workout we did on Saturday. Obviously, what we had planned was, if I actually did the workouts right, was a 4-hour ride and a strength session, but we ended up doing a 40-minute run. Fly home Saturday night, and then I wake up Sunday, and I still feel quite tired, just like I had the last time I went up to Brisbane. And I mean, it's literally just a few days on takeout food and little sleep and a lot of travel. I mean, my lifestyle's not much more taxing when I'm there. I think it's just a change in routine that tends to throw me around. So Sunday, I just did a 1-hour bike, pretty steady, like around 200-ish watts, nothing, 175 watts actually, I was looking now. So that one was pretty basic, like a basic ride. But I mean, I got off the bike and I was frustrated at the end of that because I knew I hadn't put together a very solid week of training. And what I wanted to have happen was I would get back on the Saturday afternoon, get my 4-hour bike ride in that Saturday, because ideally I wasn't going to be tired at all after traveling. And then Sunday I'd hit my 2-hour long run that was planned and I'd be back on track, no worries at all. But what ended up happening is I get back Saturday afternoon completely exhausted, fall asleep, wake up Sunday, still tired, and only have enough energy to do a 1-hour ride. So it was just frustrating, I think, to not be hitting the kind of consistency I wanted to be doing, especially because I did try and take a conservative approach into this trip, and I still felt some flow-on effects in the few days after. But look, we're all age group triathletes, that's what happens. You can't really avoid it, and it's just part of the process, which sounds incredibly cringe, I know. But let's jump to this week of training. And I mean, I was able to get back on track relatively well this week, but we did still have some issues. So Monday, we start out with a 3.2 kilometer swim, done exactly as planned. Main set for that was 5x300, 5x200, 5x100. So pretty nice build. Average 141 per 100, which is pretty great. I even managed to get in a half-hour easy run on Monday just during my lunch break at work. So average 5:11 per kilometer on that one. Super chill, average heart rate, lower than 150, so nice easy run. And then Monday afternoon, our easy spin, 1 hour, I actually ended up averaging 216 watts, which is like 16 watts above Ironman power. So it wasn't exactly an easy ride. I felt like I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder after only getting in 8 hours or 8 hours, 53 minutes of training the week before. not exactly ideal, but anyway, I didn't really feel like I needed to take much of a rest ride that one. But then Tuesday morning, I wake up and I wouldn't exactly say I was sick, but I certainly didn't feel too good. Like I had a bit of a cough, felt like I had almost a little bit of a cold, which is, I very rarely get sick. I don't really get colds or flus very often, once every few years maybe, but didn't feel too well. So I managed to get the strength session done, but it was a bit of a drag. And then we had our Tuesday track session planned, which I didn't go to because I didn't quite feel up to it. And I just made that about a 10-kilometer easy run. So 51 minutes, 9.8 kilometers, averaging 5:16 per kilometer. And that one was frustrating because I was very motivated going into this week of training, wanting to hit everything consistently and exactly as it was planned. And I just wanted to put last week in the past and get straight back into it. So when mentally I was super motivated, but physically I wasn't able to hit that session, that was quite frustrating and hard to deal with, but tried to move on. And then the next morning, a swim session, which was planned as 4 kilometers, but I only did 2.3 kilometers just because I wasn't feeling the best. Also, the heater in the pool wasn't working, so I was getting really cold and I knew I was already fighting off a bit of sickness. So, I mean, really, that just pushed me out of the water sooner than what I would have got out anyway, but I wasn't feeling the best to get through a whole 4K session anyway, let's be honest. And that one was also quite frustrating because, yeah, I knew I'd cut last week's swim short on one of them as well, and all of a sudden I'm back in that same position I was in. But we managed to get through the Wednesday afternoon threshold ride. So I managed to actually get through 6 by 6 minutes at threshold, but I did have to put it on erg mode, and that's something I've been trying to avoid doing the last few weeks. I've been trying to actually control the power myself, but I noticed my power was really slipping without erg mode on, so I figured I'd take it a bit easier on myself and whacked it on erg mode to let the machine actually control the power. And that takes us to Thursday now, and this is probably the point where I start to get back on track for the week. So, I mean, we haven't had to skip any workouts at this stage. I've just dropped the intensity out of a few and cut them a little bit shorter, but that's not too bad. And then Thursday, I managed to hit pretty much what was planned, but not quite with the intensity that I would have liked to do it. So, so Thursday, a 14-kilometer run, an hour and 10 minutes at 5:02 per kilometer. So really what that actually was, I did it on the treadmill and we did 5 by a mile and then 5 by 200 on / 200 off. I did those miles at 4 minutes 30 per kilometer, which is like, I don't know, about 7 minutes per mile. It's certainly not very quick. Ideally, I would have been running those at about 4 minutes per kilometer or 6:30 per mile. But I wasn't going to push anything too hard, knowing that my immune system was still a little bit compromised. And then I did that one on the treadmill as well, just to try and take a bit of extra load off, where I would have been running outside. I find that's slightly higher impact, so ran that one on the treadmill just to decrease the load on my body. And then the only other session we had on the Thursday was just a 45-minute easy ride. So it was actually kind of fortunate that that's what was planned for the day, because it's kind of exactly what I needed, just a nice easy spin. And then Friday, I wake up feeling pretty good. I'm pretty sure I've shaken it all the way at this stage and I'm back to 100%. So I managed to hit a nice 4K swim where I averaged about 145 per 100. Swam that one in the 25-meter pool, which is a bit of a drag, but that's all good. We got through it. And then Friday afternoon, we had a nice strength endurance ride. Now, this is one I haven't done, I don't think, since before the training log actually started. It was the last time I did strength rides, so it's low cadence work. We did 2 rounds of 4 minutes at 260 and then 2 rounds of 8 minutes at 260, all with a cadence of around 60 to 65. So really slow, grind the gears out and build some good strength in the legs. And those ones I actually did do on erg mode as well, just because I find it's a little too challenging to hold consistent power and hold my cadence really low. Now, a lot of my rides, and I'll jump to the Saturday long ride next as well, which we also did on the trainer. So all of my rides this week were done on the trainer, including the Saturday long ride. So for that one, we did 4 hours at an average power of 191 watts, which I'm pretty happy with. I just, chucked the Tour de France on TV. The girls were away for the weekend, so had the lounge room to myself, dragged the bike out into the lounge room, right in front of the big screen, and, chucked the Tour de France on. So that was a pretty nice day, bit of music on there as well. And we managed to do, 4 hours at 191 watts. And then I also threw in just a nice 5K social run that morning, and then we had another weight session that afternoon. So a triple session day. I felt like we were pretty well back on track. But just to mention there, I said all my sessions on the bike were done on the trainer. That's not something that I don't really want to be doing. It was just poor weather and maybe a poor mental attitude, I suppose, or I wasn't physically in the best condition that I wanted to be in to actually go outdoors in the cold. But I will be trying to, over the next few weeks, the next, I think, 10 weeks now, leading up to Sunshine Coast 70.3, spend more time out on the road, because I think that's something that let me down in my first Ironman about 2 months ago now. So a bit more experience out on the road, actually holding that aero position. I know that's something I need to work on, but I've just been, falling off the bandwagon a little bit and doing some rides indoors, because I do find those a bit easier. I mean, my coach basically said after this ride here, he was like, great job, 4 hours on an indoor bike. It's not very mentally appealing to most people, and a lot of people find it quite challenging. And I said, look, mentally I'm very motivated to get some sessions in now at some really good intensity, because I've just had 2 weeks of pretty poor training. I mean, we'll talk about that in the wrap up, but just quickly, Sunday's long run, we had a little over 2 hours, 2 hours and 7 minutes, 5:27 per kilometer, and a 23-kilometer run. So a fairly flat course that I did that one on, but I just wanted to keep it super moderate the whole way out, so 5:30 per kilometer. Just for reference, if you didn't see my Ironman recap, I did like 4:50s about my Ironman pace, like that's 40 seconds per kilometer off Ironman pace, so super moderate, super easy, relatively. But yeah, as I was saying, like mentally, I'm pretty motivated now to get in some good, consistent, hard training, especially because I do have only 10 weeks now until my first 70.3. Like, I want to go into that race knowing I've put together a really good training block, and having the last 2 weeks of relatively inconsistent training is quite frustrating, and it's got me pretty motivated now to really go full steam ahead into these next few weeks and the next 10 weeks into Sunshine Coast 70.3. After that, I've also got Noosa Triathlon at the end of October, so that'll be an Olympic distance triathlon, which will be great fun. I won't be training specifically for an Olympic distance. I'll switch it back to Ironman training after that. But I'm just going to do that as a bit of a fun social hit out with a great charity group. And then the other race that I'm looking at doing, I'm looking at putting together an indoor Ironman towards the end of the year. So pool swim, a trainer, ride, and then maybe either a treadmill run or run on like a 400-meter continuous track. The reason why I would want to do that is so I can get some good data insights. Like, I'll treat it as a bit of a training day, but I'll also have an open invite. Anyone else that wants to come and join in on the day can, like, 0 entry fee, and maybe I'll do it as a bit of a charity event if some other people are interested. But really, I just want to get a really good training day of indoor riding where I can hit some really specific numbers and get some good Ironman data towards the end of the year. It's a bit out of budget for me to travel all the way to the other side of Australia just to do the Busselton Ironman. So maybe I can organise my own indoor one. But that's pretty much the race schedule now for the end of the year. Sunshine Coast 70.3 on September 11th. Noosa Triathlon on, I think, the 30th of October, and then maybe an indoor Ironman November to December. And that's pretty much what we're training for now. So as I said, yeah, really keen to get into some pretty hard, pretty consistent training over the next 10 weeks. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this week. Looking forward to the next one.